Welcome, Farewell fans. Welcome to another awesome episode. I have brought you another unique interview. If you have watched any of the other interviews, you know that I am only coming with top tier information to make you a better person, a better parent, and to grow and and spread it out to everybody else. Now today I have Dr. Diane here, and what's unique, Diane, is that your name is spelled with two N's. Now, I have a coworker that has her name spelled with two N's, and she goes into a flux when you spell her name incorrectly.
Oh,
Okay, she like, look, it's two N's, not one, two N's. So we have to make sure whatever we write, she got two N's, because nobody wants to hear the fact that she got two N's in her name.
no, I put up with it so long. I'll just go. I come to whatever you do. You know, you want to call me Diane or D or Doe or whatever. I say, hey, yeah, sure. Hey, what's up?
Well, Diane, welcome to the show. Okay.
Thank you.
And it's a pleasure to have you here. Farewell fans, we are going to talk about something that is all inspiring, because one of the things us as parents, what we do when it comes to our kids, and we have also been the product of it as well, is that we have always been told what to do by our parents. We have always been told what to do. There's not one thing that we do initially or go to initiate a situation. We always been told what to do. I didn't initiate cooking when I was at my mom's house. I just waited for her to cook. I didn't initiate washing my clothes. I would just throw the clothes downstairs and wait for her to wash them. And then when she come in the house, did you wash my clothes that I put in the basement? And she would say, well, why didn't you wash them? I didn't. That's not my job. That we haven't divvied out jobs. That's your job, Mom. Your job is to go to work, come home, cook, clean, and all that stuff. Like, I'm just a kid here. I don't have responsibilities. No, I don't have chores. I'm living the life of luxury, but now I'm living the life of adult, and I'm just realizing, like, I want to go back to the life of luxury. let me go back to the life of limited responsibility, of nothing. No, I'll cook, I'll clean, I'll do that. I don't want to pay bills. So I brought Diane onto the show, and we're going to talk about some of these things, about how to empower your kids to take that initiative and to do those things, right? So, Diane, can you just tell us a little bit about your background and what inspired you to explore the topic of teaching responsibility to kids?
Well, actually, I grew up kind of like you. My parents were even worse. I mean, man, my mother was so tough. If I talk back or I ask a question, she would take a bar of really wet soap and she'd slide it behind my buck teeth. And I mean, I could have been called Bubbles. I had so much soap stuck behind my front teeth. And if that didn't work, then I got hit with the belt, the wooden spoon.
Yeah.
I mean, man, you name it. And it was just for asking why.
Yeah.
So, but you know, the bad thing is it was good for them because they got their stuff done, right?
True.
Hey, go do the dishes, go do whatever.
Yes.
But then when I got out into the real world, I had no idea of how to manage life.
Yes. You're absolutely right.
I was I went out into the world. I became a stewardess, but this is when they still used real knives and forks in coach.
Okay.
And I knocked a man's tooth out with my hip. And we were going to the Indianapolis 500. And I asked the other girl, I said, hey man, what do I do? And she's, I don't know. So what did I do? I had no social idea. So I walk up to the cockpit, and at that time it wasn't locked. And I threw open the door and I said, Captain, you can't land the plane right now. He goes, oh, really? I'm like, yeah, I just knocked a man's tooth out with my hip. What are we going to do? He goes, you let it go and pick up the trays and then we'll talk about it. So that's what I did. Picked up the trays. A man got off the airplane, and then there was an ambulance at the bottom of the stairs. And he said, "Get in." So I got into the ambulance, and I said, "Oh my God, where are you taking me?" He said, "Well, we're waiting for the people to do the Indianapolis 500." And I radioed down and said, "I have the only stewardess in the world that has such hips that she takes men's teeth out." So they gave us a ride. So they gave us a ride in the Goodyear blimp. So they did. Well, that was cool until we got back and all these passengers were on the airplane. And I said, "Well, you're not going to say anything." He said, "Well, I get halfway through the cabin and he gets online and he said, 'Hey, ladies and gentlemen, be very careful because this young lady that's walking down the aisle takes men's teeth out with her hips.'" So I ran back to the galley and I did not come out. And anybody dare walk into the galley and say anything to me, and I cried. I cried. So I mean, that was the beginning of it. And then, I made so many bad choices. I married an Argentine, ended up in Argentina, and we divorced. But then I married a diplomat. And I sent you a paper on this. This was the time when it was a takeover. It was a military takeover of the government. And my husband and I were involved with really difficult cases. And that was when they had the desaparecidos. I mean, one day you could be here and the next day you're dead. You're gone. And so I had to learn, like, as fast as I could, how do I talk to these people? How do I meet the president of the country, who, in my eyes, was so cute and so fun until I got my clearance and found out what he was doing? And still, you have to be kind and pleasant. And then you have people behind his back, trying to get you aside and do things that may not be what the United States government wants us to do. So you have to be up on your toes all the time.
Mm-hmm.
From there, we ended up, after we finished our post there, we ended up in Mexico. And that was when another issue was going along. And so I would watch these very powerful people and even the underworld. We got involved with the underworld, and it was, real James Bond stuff. And I had to know how to use my eyes, how to use my words, and how to know when to turn somebody off with a smile on my face. And I learned it from the bad guys and the good guys.
Mm.
But then when I got back to the States, I figured, how did they do that? So I really went back to school for 12 years, and I got my master's, and 2 doctorates. And I really studied interpersonal communication, from learning disabilities to interaction and to just anything I could find out. That's what I studied. How did the brain work? I did brain research. So after 12 solid years, I realized, I think I got it. And all this time I was actually I have my own private practice.
Mm-hmm.
And I was trying it even at home with my husband. Because, you get to a point in your life where your marriage starts to go a little bit dry.
Yeah.
And our son was in middle school at the time. And, middle school kids can be a little spicy.
Yes, they can.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So I tried it with him. And then I would try it with autistic kids. And then I would try it with parents. I would try it with gay couples. And it worked with everyone. Autistic kids, neurodivergent kids. And I thought, I got something here. So what is it? It's just an easy way, but it's very hard at the beginning because you have to open your perception.
Mm.
Now, do you know what I mean by that? I mean, by opening your perceptions, it's like, we're so busy. We come into the house, We see the kids sitting there watching TV when they're supposed to do their homework. And what do? We start spouting out.
Yeah. Yeah.
Okay. So how do you change that?
Well, there's a few things that I could think about. Okay. You can resort to yelling, which is the kind of the first thing, as you said, spouting out. You can have a open dialogue conversation. You can bribe them. Okay.
I love it.
Bribery is one of the things. Hey, you go do your homework, you can get a cookie before dinner.
Yeah.
Okay. And then there's, the overall threat. Then from there, I don't know, because nobody wants to negotiate with a kid.
Actually, I think you can. And there's a couple things I want to point out before we do that is, do you notice differences in each of your kids? And I mean by how they process information. We don't process the same way. For example, if I have 3 kids, the first kid, he just wants the bottom line. Hey, Mom, don't get into all these details. You're bugging me. That's the first kid.
Okay.
Then the second kid, I say, hey, man, put your shoes away. Would you want them in the cupboard, or do you want them under my bed? Or is it just where the black shoes are? I mean, that's the detailed kid. Kind of gets under your skin, but everything is detailed. Then I got the third one. Now, she was born after these two, so she's the one that can get along with the kid who wants the bottom line or the kid that wants the details. So she's mixed.
Okay.
So we all kind of fall into these categories. Generalist is the guy who wants the bottom line. Specialist is the one who likes the details. And the mixed is usually like most teachers turn out to be mixed. We may start being a teacher as one or the other, but because we have to kind of work with all of you guys, then we become mixed. So it is something that you as a parent, you can do that, because you can mix the way that you work with each of your kids based on how they accept that information.
Okay.
All right.
So I would say that my son would be a specialist, because even so for those that know, my son produces the live show that we have. They produce the live show that we have. So by him being behind the keyboard, he needs intricate details on how to run the keyboard. Now, me, I can look at something and I can say, you know what? I think this would be good if I do it this way. I'm a little bit more creative with it. Okay. So if you put something in front of me and say, hey, try to figure this out. I'm in a whole master class. I'm trying to figure it out. Yeah. My son puts something in trying to figure it out. Well, how you want me to figure it out? It's a puzzle. You have to put the puzzle pieces together. Am I supposed to do it by color, or am I supposed to do it by P? Like, he needs that intricate step-by-step detail, which it's kind of hard to mix creativity and logical step-by-step together, because creativity doesn't flow in that range. So when it comes to like being an artist, like I just know he just doesn't have it. like I know if I put, just say for example, I put 3 cameras up and I say, well, switch between the cameras, based on who's talking. He may switch them 1, 2, 3. 3, 2, 1. And it's like, no, don't do it like that. Oh, well, you said do it based on who's talking. Right. But to him, it's a logical, hey, this is the step-by-step process, which is good to be for book smart kids. But when it comes to being creative, it's like, it's more overall flowing. So that's why I say, he would be more so a specialist than anything.
Right. But the brain is malleable. We can actually change the brain's way of processing the information. His bottom line is he's always going to be a specialist. But we have to learn how to use his strategies and his techniques in a way that fits into the generalist ideas.
Okay.
So when you say, I want you to span the camera to the person that's speaking, then you turn it around and say, what does that mean to you? And then you just told me he would do 1, 2, 3. And then you'd say, is number 2 talking? Or is number 3 talking? Now, I know at the beginning it's going to sound like this is a pain in the dopa. But once you get him reprogrammed by using his own words, so please define what spanning the camera based on who's speaking means to you.
Right.
And then you gotta be quiet. You gotta listen. Well, Dad, when I span the camera according to who's speaking, oh crap. That means the person that's actually talking? Yeah, son, you're right. So if number 3 spoke and number 1 is going to speak next, or he starts to speak, who do you span the camera to after you get done with 3? Number 1. Oh, man, that's awesome. So I've done 2 things. I listened to him. I got his program. I understand how he defined it.
Yeah.
And then I gave him applause. You're right. So you're basically reprogramming him in what you want him to do.
Right.
And the positive reaction that you have makes that information stick longer in his brain.
I agree.
Because when you get a positive reaction from somebody, what do? It's like playing a video game. It's called immediate reaction or immediate response. So your brain sets off a little bit of chemical that makes you happy.
Okay. Now, why do you think it's important for children to develop a responsibility from an early age?
Oh, you will love yourself for it. So
I agree. And the reason why I agree is because, and like CPS, don't come looking for me. My son grown now, okay? Don't come looking for me. Yeah. But I knew at some point in time, because of the way my support system was set up, that my son was going to have to start being at home by himself as he moved into his teenage years. And he had to develop a responsibility as well as a level of awareness for when I'm not there. Whether I'm going to class, whether I'm just stepping out for just a little bit to go to the store and I don't want to drag him with me, or he just don't want to be torn away from his game system. So it was in those instances I was like, okay, well, I know that I need to show him how to cook, but I can't put him on the stove because his awareness is not there. So I can't put him on the stove, right? So, okay, well, let's start off with the microwave. Okay, read the instructions on the back and it'll tell you how to put it onto the microwave, right? Let's look at, okay, well, here's a cell phone. Here's important numbers that you're supposed to know, okay? Hey, every Sunday we clean the house. That's that we get in there, we clean together. You clean over here, I clean over here. This is what this product does, this is what that product does, and we go from there. And I know some parents tie it to money.
Some parents what?
Some parents tie it to money. They tie chores to money as an incentive. But I think when you do that, it doesn't give them the overall perspective of why they doing it outside of exchanging time for money. And what does that sound like? The workforce, right? So I'm exchanging time on Sunday to clean the house in exchange for money. And then they get into this idea that that's how life works. If I exchange time to do this work,
Yeah.
I'll get paid money. Now, it works good for a kid because you're incentivizing them to get paid. But what in turn happens is you're just grooming them for the workforce to do a task and to get paid for.
Well, there's a couple things that you brought up that are so important. One is, it's called internal control or external control. When you keep telling the kid what to do, where's the control coming from? Inside the kid or outside from dad?
Okay.
So
Okay.
let's go back a little bit. All right, you want your son to cook. All right. Now, you got to sit down and you got to make the rules with him.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm.
But he has to be, with the way his brain works, he has to define everything you say. So you're going to need a little bit of patience and a lot of zipping it. Okay.
Right.
All right.
Right.
So we're going to start with microwave, son. Okay. Pull out that dinner from the microwave. Okay. What's the first thing you would do if I wasn't here? I don't know. I'd give you a call. You could.
Yeah.
But if you're all by yourself and you were like really hungry, what could you do? Okay, well, I turn the box over. I read the directions. Well, now you're acting mature. That's that. There you go. And then what would you do? And you have to really be quiet and watch what he says. I put it in the microwave. According to that, I got to pull the paper back a little bit. Okay, cool. Notice what I'm doing. Every time he does something that is what we really want them to do, what
Right.
do? You give him a little verbal pat. Yeah, man, that's cool. Hey, you're getting it, dude. You're getting it. Hey, awesome. I'm so proud of you. Every one of those is like a little drop of something really good inside his body. So his brain is like playing a video game. Oh my God, look at that. I got some coins. Oh my God, I got the bad guy. Oh my God, this is awesome. And all you're doing is just using your words to make him powerful.
Okay.
But when you do these things, okay, then you have to talk about the repercussions.
Okay.
So you put it in for 40 minutes. Is that right? And then he goes, oh no, it was 4 minutes. Dang. Okay, so what do you need to do? How could you fix that? Well, before I put the thing in, I got to go back and check the time.
Yeah.
Man, you are growing up. Exactly. So he does it. Now, do it when you're around a couple times because you can't get the kid to make sure he does it. Hey, why don't you show me how you're going to use the microwave tonight? We're going to have, that Chinese food that we like that was frozen in these little cups. Okay, cool. I'm not going to say anything. You're going to teach me.
Mm-hmm.
And he says, oh yeah, okay, blah, blah, blah. So now he becomes the teacher. And when he becomes the teacher, he is learning self-awareness. So if he had to go in for a job tomorrow, he could say, I'm really cool. I'm responsible. How are you responsible? My dad tells me how to do something. I learn how to do it. Man, I can do it on my own. I am so cool. That is the first step of becoming self-aware. When you become self-aware, remember when you and I were talking, it was like, hey, that is great. I love what you're saying. I love the way you're presenting this. What am I doing to you? And I'm not doing it to make you feel good. I mean, I'm being honest with you. But what am I doing? It makes a person realize this is a part of me. I have this attribute. So when you become self-aware, your self-esteem goes up.
Right.
So when your self-esteem goes up and you make a mistake, you're not going to take my criticism as hard as you would have if you had no self-awareness and no self-esteem. Because you know you're good.
Right.
But you don't know you're good when mom and dad and whoever keeps taking away your power.
True. True. Now, let me ask this. How does that translate over to critical thinking? Because as a child, not saying that they have to critical think, not saying that, but if they develop the skills early enough, if something was to happen, okay, and they're there by themselves, or they have to think, make a phone call or anything, how some kids are, they don't really grasp the situation right then and there, and it goes for any age.
Yeah.
Okay, teenagers on down, it goes for any age. So we're talking about critical thinking, being able to make those judgment calls, being able to, analyze the situation and make the right decision right then and there. It could be the difference between life and death. It could be the difference between a safe situation or a dangerous situation.
Yeah.
Either to themselves or, the life of that situation with somebody else. They could be with a group of friends and they're like, hey, let's go skip school. Let's go do this. And yeah, it sounds fun until you get into a situation and say they get caught by truancy officers. They friends decide to run, but you're too frozen to even make a decision of what you're going to do, and now you're caught. But had you thought ahead of time and said, you know what, let me really think about this. If I go hang out with my friends and skip, the last few periods of school, the truancy officers can catch us. It'll be a good time. We're going to go to the store. We're going to go get food. We're going to go hang out at a friend's house that live right down the street. But if we get caught by the truancy officers, it could be a ticket. My mom and my dad got to take off for work. They got to come down to the courthouse, and then there's going to be a whole nother discussion. All that stuff. None of that stuff is going through their head because the fun in design is coming out. Like, oh, it's going to be such a rush. We're going to have so much fun. Then you add in there that it may be some young ladies there. And now, oh, yeah, the one girl that you like, she going to be there too. So now the whole critical switch is cut off because now it's this flood of emotion that's like, okay, well, I want to go do that versus staying over here. So how does critical thinking play a part into, helping your child develop responsibility traits?
Well, when a child is accustomed to everybody making their decisions and doing all the talking for them, I actually did brain research on this. I put kids in an MRI, fMRI, and we just had a little finger tap thing that we asked them to do. Now, the kids that were accustomed, you were a perfect example of a kid who's using both sides of his brain. Because he sees it, he hears it, he talks about it. You did a great job. But when a kid is always accustomed to somebody making those decisions and telling him what to do, he may be the best football player around. Why? Because he has that perceptual side of his brain is so attuned. He feels what's happening around him. But most of the time, these kids are the kids that don't talk a lot. So they get into these situations, even these adult football players that get messed up because a policeman stops him. And then they turn around and do something that they shouldn't because they're not using the language side of their brain.
Right.
And we tested this under fMRIs. The kids who used their mouth, who talked to themselves, they had lighting exactly where it's supposed to be in the brain. The kids who didn't had lighting all over the brain because I couldn't figure out what they were supposed to do. I actually had a guy, his sister, he was a twin. His sister did all the talking. They went out, they found some ATVs, and they decided they were going to have some fun.
Mhm.
So one of the guys says to the other guy, "Hey man, let's turn off the lights and play chicken." They did. Guess who died? Because he had no self-talk inside his head.
Wow.
So that's why I'm so glad we're talking today. Because if you start at 2 years old, because that's when the brain basically is the right side of the brain and the left side of the brain have actually matured and come together.
Yeah.
You start picking up toys. Where do your toys need to be? In the box. Yeah. Okay. But these are blocks. Where do the blocks go? They go in the red one. So now you're teaching them colors, you're teaching them numbers, and they're teaching them self-esteem. Who's
Right.
doing all the talking? The kid.
Yeah.
So when the kid does something wrong and the truant officer brings him home because he thought it was going to be cool to go out and have some fun and not go to class, before you start ragging on this kid, and this is going to be hard.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Yeah.
I want you to now. This is the second hard part: is use your eyes, because when you look at a person, that person feels felt. If you look at him with anger, he feels demeaned, and you don't have to say a word. He feels lower than low, especially when Dad does it. So you have to really take out of your mind that I'm gonna look at him like a bat out of hell, because that's not what you're not gonna get anywhere. You gotta put this almost an empty look on. You look at him and you go, "What'd you learn from this?"
Mm. Now
Notice
that's
that when I look at you, I'm not mad. You don't see me angry at you. You don't see me glaring at you. I say, "What'd you learn?"
now that's introspective. That's introspective.
Yeah.
Because now what you're doing is that you're having them reflect on what they did and provide an accurate response. Now, some kids will say, I don't know. I don't know what I did.
Oh, that's another part of the whole process. Okay. And this is hard, but at first they're going to rebel. They're going to walk out of the room, slam the door, whatever. But because I use extension words, because I don't know, Dad, damn it, get off my back. And oh, I know, and you're not going to let me go out this weekend. You knew I really wanted to go out with my friends. So, shit. So, I don't know. I should have listened. I should have listened in my head. So, and therefore, so now we have to have a reprimand.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know, Dad. So if you don't know, do I pick it?
Mm.
So it's you talked about critical thinking.
Right.
You can start critical thinking from 2 years on. And then you start to hear them talk. And when they hear themselves talk, guess what? They feel their own self-esteem and self-awareness. When they become self-aware and they start using these strategies at home with you, guess what they start to do outside of the house?
They start making the right decisions.
They use the same strategies with their friend. Dude, what are you going to do differently? Hey, you think we're making a good choice? I don't know. Because? And? You know, oh, yeah, I know, you're going to tell me, we're going to get thrown in,
Yeah.
whatever. Yeah.
Yeah.
So, and then of course they're going to use their words, the F word and all this. Yeah, but. And so now your son's friends start to look at your son like, man, he's the dude. He becomes a leader because
What?
he is the guy who's making the other guys think. And
What?
he's the one that kept them out of trouble.
True. True. Or he could become an outsider and they say, you know what? You go ahead and go to class. We're about to go out there, and whether they get away with it or not, you know, I think that the conversation, and if you have, open, and just throw this tidbit in there, if you have open dialogue and conversation with your child, and they tell you like, yeah, they wanted to go out and hang, but I wanted to go to class, you reinforce that decision and say you made the right decision by going to class. You don't demean his kid, the other kids or anything, but encourage that decision and that behavior.
I agree. But there again, who's doing all the talking? Yeah, man, you did the right thing by going to class. I mean, yes, we can say that, but maybe we ask him first. So do you feel you made the right decision by going to class?
Mm.
He's going to flip. Like, what? Well, of course I did. I agree. But see, when I get him to say it first,
Right.
I'm not taking away his power. But
Okay.
then when I say, I agree, you are becoming a man. That's what men do.
Now,
Little boys run away and they play hooky and they get screwed. Men do the right thing and they get honored. And that's what you are. I am honoring you because you know how to make choices.
now, let's go. Let's walk in depth into these 4 tricks that you recommend to encouraging kids and to be more responsible. So we know, make them have a introspective reflection on themselves. Let them answer the question on whether they did something right or did something wrong. So what will be the other 3
Well,
tricks?
whenever you make rules or basically when you're making family rules or
Right.
rules of social, what do you do when you're out with your friends? You also have to talk about what would the repercussions be, and
Mm-hmm.
they have to help you do that. I mean, if you say, okay, man, you're not going to be playing video games for the next week. Who made the decision? He did. You did. But when you let him make the decision and he says, oh, well, I won't have dessert tonight. Do you really think that the crime and the repercussion of that is equal? Well, no. Good. So you got to come up with something that really justifies what you did.
Right.
And so now tell me like a man or tell me like a mature kid, what would be a good repercussion? What would be the consequence?
Mm-hmm.
All right, I guess 2 days without my video games. Okay, I'll go along with that. But what you should do is write it down.
Mm-hmm.
And I say to the kids, I say, hey, do you mind if we write this down? Because what I think is going to happen is you're going to say, I never said that, or you never said that.
Right.
When I work with kids, the thing that they hate the most about parents is they make the rules.
Mm-hmm.
Clean up your room before you go out.
Right.
Then they want to go out. And all of a sudden, oh, yeah, but you didn't pick up those black shoes that were under your desk. You can't go out. See what I mean? You guys are really changing the rules on them. They hate that.
Mm-hmm.
So if they
Yep.
say, what I have to do is I got to pick up all the shoes, got to make my bed, and I got to put my clothes in the closet. That's it. No matter what. If I can just throw them in the closet, they don't care. Is that okay with you guys? Yeah. All right. Time to go out. 7:00. They're going to go out. They want to be out at 7:15. You say, okay, do you mind if I check your room? Yeah, sure. Okay. Clothes are thrown in your closet. I didn't say it had to be hung up. Your shoes are in the closet. That's cool. Your bed is made. All right, man. Have fun. So now they feel respected. You haven't taken away their power. You have been honest with them. So what did they learn? They learned honesty.
Right.
And then they're able to go out, which is even a double thing. It's like, awesome. I did all the things. Now I know how to be responsible. So now you go out into the real world and they start using their words with their friends.
Mm. Okay.
So the more you get your kids to talk and that they hear themselves making critical choices, the more, and you actually, you don't have to always be praising them, but you acknowledge it.
Right.
You say, all right, now that's thinking, that's maturity. And even a little kid, I'll say, hey, you're growing up to be a big kid. I'm so proud of you.
Mm-hmm.
So they start to learn how to use their words. They start to learn how to think with their mouth in critical thinking. And they start to use those same skills outside the house with the other kids. Hey, I want to go to the game this weekend. I go out with you guys right now and skip school. I'm screwed. I'm fucked. But if I go to class and I do what I have to do, I'm going to be able to go out with you guys on the weekend. And that's more important than going to go and have ice cream, hang out on the corner. He's
I agree.
using his words. He's becoming a man. And at first you think they're going to be putting him down. But you know, over time, what the kids do, they look up to him.
It's true. For always doing the right thing and always, not being not following what everybody else is doing.
He becomes
So
the
now,
role model.
let me ask you this. What would you suggest to parents who struggle with getting their kids to follow through on responsibilities?
What do we? Well, who made the rules in the first place?
The parent did.
Yes.
So even now, as my son is an adult, and I ask him to do various things, he takes his time with doing them, which is, fine. I'm not gonna put him out over it. But I do have a conversation with him and say, hey, you've been slacking on washing these dishes. I'm gonna need you to kind of do more of the washing the dishes like sooner. Like, don't wait till they pile up to the ceiling and then be like, well, I'm washing them now. Like, we out of all bowls and plates. Now you want to wash dishes. Like, can we stay ahead of the curve? So for me, it's that conversation. And it's not really a struggle. It's more so his schedule is just busy. Work, school. Then he want to have his downtime. And it just doesn't involve washing dishes. Washing dishes not downtime, is more of a chore when you look at it. So is me understanding, and this for me, this is me understanding, hey, and we had the conversation. He was like, well, sorry, I haven't been, washing the dishes. I said, well, I understand because, you go to work, you go to school, and then you have your downtime. And, we're all entitled to that, right? We want to unplug, we want to decompress, and we use whatever method that for us to do that to get through the day. Now,
Stop you at that?
go ahead.
Okay. You can get mad at me. That's fine. But I'll say, love. Hey, love. Who's doing all the talking?
Okay. Talker. I like to talk. I can't.
And you're screwing yourself.
Okay.
We should get back together. I'll give you a week. Let's get back together. And then we talk again. And then if you start learning to let him talk, he's going to fix his own life. And guess what you have? You have more time on your hands to have fun.
Mm.
I know, parents, and we do it because we're good parents. You're not the only one. We all do it. We all do it. But what are we doing? We're making more work for ourselves we're taking away the power from our kids, and our kids are going out into the real world, and they're going to screw up just like I did, and even worse.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not like it was when I grew up, man. I mean, things are so hard.
That is true.
And
That's
you can be
true.
pulled over just by the color of your skin.
True.
And so you have more responsibility from the earliest age that you can to get your kids to start knowing who they are.
That's true.
When I got back to the university and I didn't speak English very well and I couldn't write papers very well, man, I mean, I was about ready. They almost threw me out.
Mm.
But I had to learn how to use my eyes and use my words. And let everybody put me down just because my language wasn't very good and my writing wasn't very good. But because they let me work it out and I said, I will do this. I didn't have anybody like you had nice parents. I didn't have that.
Mm.
So when you go in and you really want something, you do it well.
So let me ask.
And I stood up for the people that also didn't speak the language.
So let me ask you this. What is one piece of advice that you would give parents, just overall, fathers, mothers, just parents that are together, parents that are separated? What advice would you, especially if they live in separate households and they're operating on two different sets of rules? What is one piece of advice you can give to them?
When they're with you, you treat him like a man and you treat him with respect and you make the rules together so that when they do something wrong, they figure it out. So when they're in your house, they're treated like a human being with respect. And when they're in with mom, they're maybe not. And guess what? She's the one that's going to have the problem in the long run.
Right.
Because she's not going to get the respect. She's going to throw him out of the house and say, go live with your dad. Well, now that you've already trained him, that he knows what he has to do, he knows how to do it, he knows how to stand up for himself, and he knows how to give you some peace and quiet so that you can relax a little bit. It's a win-win.
Right.
You could do this in the workplace.
Yeah. Yeah.
You can do it with anyone.
Okay. I'm gonna use that at the next evaluation when I have with staff. Use it in the next. What do you think you went wrong at? Why you write this evaluation like this?
Mm-hmm.
Ain't no way you as great as you think you are.
Mm-hmm.
Maybe not the last part, but that's the right question.
Well, no, but if you establish what you think you are, if you establish what that means between you.
Yeah.
I mean, it's like if you and I talk about what do we when you want to evaluate me, what are you going to look at? What do I need to know that you're going to judge me on?
Mm-hmm.
Be honest with me. And then when I don't do it, you're not doing anything wrong. On the contrary, you're giving me a chance to bring myself up because you're making me think. But we're playing by the rules. You're giving me some parameters to play by.
Right.
But if you take the rules and change them on me, you're not being fair.
I agree. Now, with such a wealth of information, where can listeners find more resources or connect with you for further tips and guidance?
Actually, the book is it's so little. Look how little it is.
The Power of Connection, right?
That's right. It's called The Power of Connection, but understanding individual differences to uplift and empower. I took all these years, and instead of writing a whole bunch of it, I just said, here, let me give you a parent's guide or an adult's guide to if you really wanted to do things better and easier and make your life better, read this little book. According to it's not been published. According to Amazon, it'll take you like, what is it, 2 hours and 33 minutes.
Hey, that's still time invested. Still time invested. Okay. Still time invested.
And you can always just keep looking back. I mean, you don't have to do every step right away. But what you do have to do is figure out who that person is that you're working with. And then the second part of the book is I just give you cool strategies.
Right.
And if worse comes in, and you have my internet is my web page is my whole name, but like one whole word. So it's DRDIANNEOLVERA.com.
Okay. And we will go ahead and definitely put that in the description so everybody can have access to it in case you may have missed it or you gotta rewind back. We want to make it very easy for you. But Diane, thank you for coming on to the show. Thank you for the wealth of information. I'm gonna put those things into practice. I'm just gonna reverse the question.
And keep in touch with me. You are not ever going to bother me. On the contrary, you would bother me if you don't ask me a question or you don't write me an email, because you will be the main set. Since you're doing this with everybody, if you start to get the hang of this, you're going to be teaching all these other fathers, and they're going to be thankful to you. You're a nice guy. You really are. So no more Mr. Nice Guy. No, I'm sorry, but you are. You're really a nice guy.
We're saying farewell to the nice guy. We're not going to forget that. Like, we're saying farewell to the nice guy. We're no longer being nice to people that are doing wrong by us. We're just not doing it.
Okay.
Not at all.
We're going to call you and hello to the critical thinker.
Well, Farewell fans, that's all that we have for you today. We will catch y'all in the next go around. Peace.